praises you in public and laughs at you behind your back. He says he's on your side, but secretly wishes for your downfall. And the worst part? He calls you his friend.
In this video, you will discover why Machiavelli believed that true friendship is an illusion, and how the people around you may just be waiting for the right moment to stab you in the back. We will expose the dark backstage of human relationships, where power is worth more than loyalty, and trust can be your death sentence. You're about to understand how the game is really played, and why no one, absolutely no one, is your friend. If you're interested in things like psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul, subscribe to the channel now. Men offend less against one they love than against one they fear. Niccolo Machiavelli. We live surrounded by smiles. At home, at work, on social media, there's always someone saying they're on our side. Someone willing to listen, advise, support. But what would you do if you found out that many of these smiles are actually carefully crafted masks hiding dark intentions? Machiavelli, with his cruel lucidity, already warned, in the game of power, friendship is rarely genuine. It is almost always a disguise. And the higher you rise, the more the masks multiply around you. Affection, in this context, is not a true emotional bond. It is a tactical instrument, shaped by the needs of the moment. The one who calls you a friend today may abandon you tomorrow, not because they hate you, but because they no longer have anything to gain from your presence. That's why Machiavelli said that alliances are sustained not by love, but by mutual interest. Friendship, in this scenario, is an invisible contract, and like any contract, it can be broken as soon as it stops being advantageous. The most dangerous element in this theater of affection is not the declared enemies. It's the intimate friends, the confidants, the journey partners. These are the ones who, by gaining your trust, access your vulnerable points, your doubts, your fears, your secrets. And it's precisely there that the game becomes perverse. Because whoever knows where your pain is, also knows where to thrust the blade. Brutus didn't come from outside. It was inside, beside Caesar, smiling, while sharpening the betrayal. But why do we fall for it? Why do we insist on believing? The answer is brutally human. The need for belonging, for connection, for believing that someone cares for us unconditionally. Since childhood, we're taught to believe in narratives where good triumphs, friends are loyal, and justice always prevails. But the real world is not a fable. And the more we deny this, the more vulnerable we become to the theater of convenience. In companies, in influence groups, among content creators or activists, the pattern repeats. While you're useful, you're cherished. But the moment you become a risk, a threat, or simply a burden, the applause turns to silence. The dinners become ignored invitations. The compliments turn into rumors. What seemed like affection reveals itself as performance. As Machiavelli wrote, it is necessary to know how to dissemble, and nothing is more dissembling than friendship when it is used as a weapon. This emotional theater is even more dangerous because it leads us to confuse loyalty with dependence. We believe that whoever walks with us today will walk with us until the end. But we forget that in times of war, and power always generates war, loyalty is the first to be sacrificed. And not out of evil, but out of strategy. In the game of power, each piece moves with coldness, even if the board is covered in flowers. Machiavelli does not say that everyone is evil. He merely reveals that goodness is not enough to protect you. That blindly trusting is like handing over your fate to foreign hands, hands that may squeeze yours tightly or push you off a cliff. The prince does not survive by being good. He survives by understanding that even allies are temporary, and that every alliance has a hidden expiration date. That's why the first step to waking up is not becoming cold, but becoming lucid. It is not rejecting affection, but seeing the theater that often sustains it. It is understanding that if you want to survive and thrive in this world of appearances and hidden intentions, you must take off the glasses of naivety and start seeing others as players. Every gesture, every word, every smile may be part of a very well-rehearsed script. And if you don't learn to read this script, you'll be just another disposable extra in someone else's play. traitor never looks like a villain. He doesn't dress in black or show up with an evil look. He approaches with delicacy, says what you want to hear, offers support when everyone else falls silent. He observes your steps, shares your laughter, and gradually earns a sacred place, your trust. It is on this emotional altar that he places the blade. Machiavelli knew this. He did not see betrayal as a moral error, but as a legitimate tool in the arsenal of power. Betrayal rarely comes from enemies. Enemies don't have access to your backstage, to your secrets, to your hesitations. Only a friend can truly betray, because only he has the keys to your internal world. And the most perverse part is that many times he doesn't even believe he's betraying. Most traitors convince themselves that they are doing what is necessary, fair, inevitable. And that's what makes the blow even colder. It is delivered by someone who believes they are right. In the game of power, it's not necessary to hate in order to betray, just a change of interest. Loyalty is solid, only as long as the benefit of staying loyal outweighs the cost. But as soon as the balance shifts, the friend transforms. The tone changes, the words change, the look changes. The praise becomes veiled criticism. The presence becomes selective absence. And the poison starts to act, slowly disguised as logic, prudence, maturity. But it is poison, and it's already inside you. Machiavelli wrote, "One must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves." Betrayal is the most sophisticated trap, and it hides behind compliments, invitations, hugs. Those who are only good will be deceived. Those who are only just will be eliminated. The true player of power needs to smell the scent of falseness before it turns into blood. And this requires a rare skill, to see beyond words, beyond the mask, beyond the performance. The traitor's language is ambiguous. He never directly says what he wants. He insinuates, manipulates, plays the victim. He steals your trust with charm and then uses your own words as ammunition against you. Everything you revealed in a moment of weakness becomes argument, becomes blackmail, becomes a weapon. And when you realize it, you are already cornered. And the face behind the betrayal is a face you loved. The most classic example is Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, surrounded by senators, flatterers, allies, and even so, stabbed in the heart of the Senate. Not by barbarians, not by foreigners, but by Brutus, his protege, his adopted son, his friend. And that's what destroys us. Not the blow, but the hand that delivers it. The betrayed love, the violated trust, the invisible pact undone without warning. Et tu, Brute? This phrase has survived the centuries because it echoes in the hearts of all who have been stabbed by someone they called a brother. But the cruelest part, Brutus was not a monster. He believed he was doing the right thing. The most destructive betrayal does not come from demons. It comes from ordinary people, driven by logic, opportunity, or fear. That's where the real horror lies. It is cold, rational, almost inevitable. When protecting you costs more than getting rid of you, most friends will choose the second option. Not out of evil, but because the game demands it, and they are playing to win. That's why Machiavelli forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. Did they betray me? Or did I allow them to get that close? That is the turning point. It's when we stop crying for those who hurt us and begin to see our own responsibility in letting our guard down. Because as long as we keep expecting eternal loyalty in a world of momentary interests, we will always be easy prey. The traitor is not the exception. He's part of the rule, and the mistake is ours for forgetting that. If you ever felt the knife in your back from someone who said they were a friend, leave your "et tu, Brute" in the comments and join those who chose to see the raw truth. At the beginning of the journey, everything feels like a dream. Recognition, influence, power. But as you rise, something begins to change. And it's not the world, it's the silence. The faces around you remain the same, but the words become less spontaneous, the hugs more mechanical, the eyes more evasive. You realize that the higher you are, the thinner the air, the scarcer the sincere souls. Machiavelli did not romanticize power. He portrayed it as it truly is, arid, distrustful, lonely. The position of the prince, he said, is like a throne over a minefield. On the outside, it's gold and glory. On the inside, it's constant tension, discreet paranoia, permanent vigilance. At the top, there is no room for naivety, because there, even your vulnerability can be used against you. Informality disappears. Simple words are replaced by calculated speeches. Even laughter gains political timing. Spontaneity dies, suffocated by protocol and games of interest. Carl Jung said, "Loneliness does not mean having no people around, but rather being unable to share what really matters with anyone." And that is exactly what happens to those who ascend. Power isolates because every gesture is interpreted, every weakness watched, every slip potentially fatal. Flatterers surround you, advisors serve you, but who really listens to you? Who looks at you without calculating what they can gain from it? The higher you rise, the less you are loved, because respect replaces affection, fear replaces connection. And when you, in a rare moment of fatigue, try to open up, you quickly realize that even venting becomes ammunition. The top is not a throne. It is a lonely lighthouse, beaten by winds of suspicion. That is why so many leaders go insane, plunge into vices, lose their sanity, not because power corrupts them, but because it isolates them. An unprepared isolation consumes the soul. The prince, said Machiavelli, must appear accessible, but be impenetrable, must listen to everyone, but trust almost no one, must keep friends close, but not too close. This is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. Because in the game of power, the mistake is not being betrayed. The mistake is allowing yourself to be betrayed by refusing to accept loneliness as a condition. Those who seek company at the top find disappointment. Those who embrace solitude find clarity. There is a point in the journey where you become a stranger, even to those who helped you rise. They look at you and no longer recognize you. Maybe they admire you. Maybe they fear you. But love? Few can love someone who carries so much weight on their back. You become a symbol, a target, a breathing throne. And the most ironic part? You know this. You feel this. But you cannot retreat, because returning to total vulnerability is surrendering to destruction. It is at this point that the true paradox of power is born. The more admired, the more lonely. The more respected, the less understood. The more surrounded by people, the further from real connection. It is the invisible punishment of leadership. To be at the center, but isolated. To be a reference, but never a confidant. That is why the true prince must be not only a strategist, but also a monk. Someone who turns silence into a fortress, solitude into lucidity. Machiavelli knew that the price of lucidity is high. It robs you of the comfort of illusion, but in return, offers you the only thing that truly matters: autonomy. Those who embrace solitude as a companion, not an enemy, begin to see the world with different eyes. The prince who survives is not the one who collects allies, but the one who cultivates clarity of spirit. Because in the end, when all the applause stops, when the masks fall, when the faces disappear, only you remain, with your lucidity, your memory, and if you are wise, your well-cultivated solitude as a shield. Machiavelli does not invite you to hate, but to understand. He does not exalt cynicism, he unmasks illusion. When he wrote that the prince must be both fox and lion, he was saying that true power requires a fusion of strategic cunning and relentless strength. One cannot survive without the other. To be only clever is to be manipulable. To be only strong is to be predictable. But to be both is to be untouchable. The fox senses the poison before it is served in the chalice. She sees the movement in the traitor's eyes before the blade shines. She reads what has not been said, deciphers silences, understands that the greatest dangers are not declared, they are suggested. The fox does not trust the surface, because she knows that's where disguises live. But at the same time, the fox does not fear, because she knows that, at the right moment, the lion awakens. The lion, in turn, is the one who, when he roars, silences the deceitful. He does not need to be violent, he needs to be remembered. The respect that surrounds him is built not by excessive speech, but by the absence of submission. The lion does not ask for permission, he asserts his presence. And it is this presence that drives away emotional parasites, disguised flatterers, the friends of convenience. The lion does not expose himself to be loved. He imposes himself to be preserved. But the true essence of this metaphor lies in inner self-sufficiency. Being fox and lion is not a pose. It is a state of consciousness. It is when you realize that you no longer need external validation to exist. When your self-esteem is no longer built on compliments, but on the lucidity of knowing who you are. When you discover that not trusting is not bitterness, it is wisdom. And that loving yourself is the only way not to beg for affection disguised as alliance. Self-sufficiency is not isolation. It is freedom. It is not arrogance. It is maturity. It is the ability to stand tall even when all supports collapse. It is the silent strength of one who does not bend, does not surrender, and does not need anyone to hold their hand to cross the minefield of human relationships. The prince does not cling to the external world. He masters his inner world. In today's world, where everything is exposed, where every flaw goes viral, where every vulnerability can become a headline, being self-sufficient is more than a virtue. It is a weapon. The game is no longer only political or social. It is psychological. It is reputational. A misstep, a poorly interpreted outburst, an emotional choice can be your ruin. That is why true power is not in speech, but in silence. It is not in the number of allies, but in the quality of your inner fortress. Machiavelli gave you the map. He does not promise you friends. He does not offer you comfort. He gives you a mirror where your weakness appears naked and your strength, if it exists, begins to emerge. You want respect? Be unpredictable. Want to be preserved? Be impenetrable. Want to be free? Stop expecting loyalty and start practicing discernment. The world does not need to love you. You need to stop begging for it to do so. And when you finally accept this truth, when the fox in you learns to sniff and the lion in you learns to stay silent, everything changes. Longing turns into clarity. Resentment becomes strategy. Pain becomes strength. Because the one who walks alone but awake is worth more than 1,000 who march dreaming of friends who never existed. And at that moment, you cease to be a piece in someone else's game and become the owner of the board. Some think this was the end. But be careful. The war is not over yet. There are still things left unsaid. These 2 videos in front of you are not here by accident. And what if everything you believe about yourself is just a reflection of someone else's gaze? Click on one of the videos beside you now and start breaking that mirror. You will have to risk the click. So, which one will you choose? Here, philosophy meets psychology, and together, we will uncover the deepest layers of the self. Activate the bell, because the next episodes will challenge you and maybe even transform you. See you in the darkness or in the light. The choice is yours.